Hey, it's Jordan with TYT Network, Monday, June 20th. And by popular demand, I've tracked down columnist and journalist HA Goodman. HA, there's obviously a lot of talk about people becoming politicians now that Bernie's kind of done a call to arms. But there's been a lot of columnists, freelancers, journalists that voices have risen this election. I humbly would hope to include myself. And
Absolutely.
I've had, fan after fan, viewer after viewer say, you got to interview HA, you got to interview HA. I wanted, to, and I've been following your work as best I can with everything I'm doing. One piece I really liked was for Salon that, the establishment, I'll leave it at the establishment folks like Joan Walsh said, is the death and destruction of Salon.
Yeah,
That was about the,
the FBI. Yeah.
possible FBI indictment. So, first, before we get into politics, just tell me, what's been your path before this? Obviously, the election, you've kind of risen
Yeah.
more to prominence.
Well, I've been writing for a little while now, and I was published over 100 times in the Huffington Post before I wrote about Bernie Sanders. And I was published in Salon too, in the Roanoke Times, in The Hill, so a bunch of places. I was on MSNBC last year in March, even before it was about the SNL skit about ISIS. So I I've been writing and I've been into politics even before the election. I wrote an article in June of 2015, and it now has 800,000 Facebook likes. And it was basically stating that it was official. Bernie Sanders has the heart and soul of the Democratic voter. And from then, what I wanted to do was draw a clear delineation between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. And I also wanted to convey the very the realistic the reality that Bernie Sanders could very easily win. And as we've seen already, Hillary Clinton is the presumptive nominee with all her advantages, with all her millions in Wall Street, with the DNC and the political machine completely backing her. And we know from Gucci for 2, okay, there's probably a Gucci for 87 and 88. But we know from Gucci for 2, and you've done amazing reporting on this, that the cards were stacked against Bernie from the get-go, from the beginning. So, and those were leaked documents, and you still haven't received, from what I understand, you still haven't received any confirmation from the DNC, right?
Correct.
Regarding yeah. So, the big issue is that, and this is what I tried to battle or counter. There are publications, let's say like Slate or the Daily Beast or TPM, and they serve as public relations firms for Hillary Clinton. So Clinton is under FBI criminal investigation. The White House confirmed, Judge Emmett Sullivan confirmed, James Comey doesn't even know what a security review is. So she's a presumptive nominee with less than 2,383 pledged delegates under FBI criminal investigation. I pretty much wrote this last year, and I was writing about this, but people said, no way, it's impossible. Bernie can't be here. He can't do it. And everybody wanted to write Bernie Sanders off. So I guess what I tried to do and what I do in my writing is offer something that a great many people in progressive media don't offer. And I know that, of course, the Young Turks, you, Tim Black, Debbie Lusignan, Mike Figueredo, Benjamin Dixon. There's a lot of other people that offer a different perspective, and I think that people want a different perspective. And I think our perspective is more realistic. I remember a time when you couldn't run for president if you were under FBI criminal investigation. Hillary Clinton couldn't type an email without an FBI scandal or an email scandal or an FBI criminal probe. So there's every reason for Bernie to stay in the race. And I'm going to continue to write about that. And I have a YouTube segment, and I talk about that all the time. I do believe he still has a chance, and he will, not just has a chance, he will become Democratic nominee because I believe she'll get indicted. So,
As Jank likes to say, do you have personal inside information on the indictment that you're just holding?
I don't have
Okay.
personal inside information, but I'll say this. The as you know, media turns, in a second. So it only takes, for example, one breakthrough. So we had the State Department report saying that she broke guidelines and rules. We know that the server was unencrypted. We know that there's an FBI criminal probe for a year. We know that eventually the FBI is going to disclose its findings. So most likely, it's almost certain that they're going to disclose before July 25th, because otherwise they'd be screwing the country. So that's why when Joan Walsh gets upset over my Salon article, she wants a potential criminal in the White House, in Hillary Clinton. The FBI isn't investigating for a year just for no reason. Hillary Clinton put special access programs. She transferred special access program intelligence from secure government networks onto an unguarded private server that was unencrypted for 3 months, linked to her BlackBerry, and then she used cloud servers to back up the data after her tenure as Secretary of State. There's a million other things going on too. Guccifer 1. Then there's WikiLeaks coming out. Defense Secretary Robert Gates states that it's almost certain that her server was hacked. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, says that if he had done what Clinton did, he would have been sent to jail. And he stated this on CNN with Jake Tapper. So, Bernie Sanders is here right now. Nobody said he'd be here. That's the big reason why the Young Turks and you and Tim Black and a whole bunch of other people, that's why we're relevant, because we provide a reality of what's going on that really public relations firms like a whole bunch of publications that are just devoted to furthering the myth that Clinton is going to be coronated. She's going to be the nominee. She's under FBI criminal investigation. Right. So, and she has less than 2,383 pledged delegates. Bernie is still in it, and I believe he's going to win. So,
I think Joan Walsh is a good example, and I'm going to say something that might not be popular with the viewers, but I'm going to speak my mind, whether it's popular or
Absolutely.
not. I happen to actually like Joan. I've interviewed her a few times years ago. Seems like a nice person. I think, although I don't agree with all her politics, I think she truly does want progressive policies. I just think her definition of progressive is different than yours and mine. But I think Joan's a really good kind of a symbol for the media. I would say the media not being journalists anymore, because I think a problem is that I've seen on the trail, that I'm sure you've seen from afar, when you're doing something for so long, in this case writing columns, reporting on TV news, being a pundit, you're in the bubble. You're in the bubble, which is you follow the horse race. And in many ways, you kind of lose your critical thinking skills.
Absolutely.
You lose your cynicism, which to me, one of my heroes is Hunter S. Thompson, because Hunter S. Thompson, by default, just thought they were all liars. And that's what I think you have to have that as a journalist if you're going to be good.
Absolutely.
There is a bit of a dance you have to do with politicians, but I would never go to a cocktail party with politicians. I personally, whether I was a TV news anchor or now, I think the minute you fly first class, you forget about the working class.
Exactly.
So I guess where I'm going at is, I think when the Joan Walshes of the world have such negative reaction to people like you writing about a possible FBI indictment and say this is the death of a once liberal bastion like Salon.com and things like that, it's really a smokescreen for the fact that most of them are, without knowing it, kind of status quo. And most of the people who say to me, "Oh, you're going overboard with this New York voter suppression stuff. You're just playing into the conspiracy theorists." Hey, let me tell you something. None of them went to the courtroom that day. None of them did interview after interview after interview with poll workers, with voters like I did. So I guess what I'm getting at, do you think that the gap between very aggressive and I'd say rabble rousers like you, maybe like me, and the Joan Walshes of the world, what do you think that is attributed to? I'm not going to say they're all evil people, but what do you think is the disconnect between people who are really just, I'm sure you don't have an interest, I don't have an interest with being friends with other media figures, being friends with politicians.
No.
What's the gap here?
The gap is a tremendous form, a very dangerous form of groupthink. So if you were to tell somebody like Miss Walsh maybe 10 years ago, hey, there's a Democrat advised by Henry Kissinger who Bush's neocons will write an open letter to saying that they're going to support over the Republican nominee. If you were to say to Ms. Walsh 10 years ago that a presidential candidate was under FBI criminal investigation, that there was widespread election fraud, that in 2008, Obama's campaign manager, David Plouffe, this is in The Atlantic, and this basically proves everything that you've been doing. In The Atlantic, the article is Obama campaign complains of widespread dirty politics, where they talk about, David Plouffe talks about 200 separate incidents of election fraud and voting irregularities in Nevada alone. In 2008, this is Clinton against Barack Obama. President Obama wasn't even on the Michigan ballot in 2008. So very strange things take place when you run against Hillary Clinton. So this election fraud.
Bill Clinton appears on primary days.
Exactly.
at poll stations.
Exactly. He appears with what was a megaphone, right? Mm-hmm. And, so this is the thing. There's a groupthink that says you can't critique Hillary Clinton. If you do, you're helping the Republicans. But the thing is, she's a Republican on war. She's a Republican on Wall Street. She can't even disclose a speech transcript. And this is something that I find very damaging. When you bring up the fact, and it could be any defender of Hillary Clinton, and of course, the issue of sexism comes up oftentimes, or they'll use a euphemism like Bernie Bro to completely marginalize any real critique. If you bring up the fact that Clinton's value system is the antithesis of what a Democratic voter votes on, so for example, this is just when you look at the value system, that's what I tried to find out. So Bernie Sanders in 1963 was a civil rights activist. He was arrested. Bernie Sanders voted against the Iraq War. We can go on forever. But there's something, for example, Hillary Clinton in 1975 defended a child rapist, and she's on tape laughing that this suspected child rapist passed a polygraph test. She's laughing. Now, can you imagine if Trump, could you imagine if anyone else did what Clinton did? There's a whole lot of other examples. She laughed when the invasion the bombing of Libya. Okay, Gaddafi was killed, and she was laughing on CBS News. Okay, the thing is, Clinton's value system should be questioned, and the groupthink extends to this. Bernie is still in it. Everybody wants, the establishment wants him to leave. The progressive media, by and large, or the establishment publications say, you know what, it's time for him to go. They never bring up the fact that she could be indicted. It's unbelievable. It's like complete amnesia. So, yeah, I think that what you're doing is extremely important, especially the election fraud is something that, this is a democracy, and we're supposed to. Our foreign policy is predicated upon the notion that we must spread democracy abroad. We're still working on it here, as you've found out with your reporting. So I think that I attribute it to groupthink, and I attribute it to adherence to a brand name. So you hear Clinton, people hear Clinton, it's synonymous with Democrat. They don't see the fact that she will send off Americans to war in a heartbeat, in a second, and that Bush's neoconservatives are advising her. When I write the FBI article, when I write an article saying, hey, FBI, hurry up, we need to find out. Could you imagine if the tables were turned? Could you imagine if Hillary Clinton had a challenger that was facing an FBI probe? If Bernie were in Clinton's shoes, he would have already been accused of treason or a spy by one of her surrogates. So I think that it's very, very important. Bernie said he's already staying in the race. I think he has a very, very good possibility. I think the chances are that he becomes Democratic nominee, especially when the indictments hit. And I think that she will get indicted.